It's been a while since we met at that writers' conference. I hope you're doing well and writing. For the last year, I have been hiding behind a computer screen, anonymously giving out advice on an online column called Dear Sugar. I know you read the column as it's received exactly one fan letter, yours. To be honest, I don't have a passion for the gig, and you know I admire your work, so I'm brazenly emailing you with a job offer. How would you like to take over the column? I mean, how would you like to be Sugar? As you know, it's anonymous, so there's no credit, and the bonus is there's no pay. So you in?
Thank you for your strange offer. I'm supposed to be finishing a book, and my husband is an artist, and we have 2 kids, and 10 mountains of debt, and I just cannot take on... Yep, I'm in.
That's great. I'll send you the letters.
Dear Sugar.
I get jealous of other people's success. When my friends get good news, I put on a smile, even though I'm really thinking, why not me?
Dear Sugar.
I want to make friends, and my dad's advice is to just be yourself, but it isn't that easy in a new school in 8th grade. Everyone already has their groups, everyone already knows who they're going to be paired up with in science class, and I'm going to be stuck with the antisocial kid that picks his nose.
Dear Sugar.
I get seasick, and I have a boat trip coming up with my boss. He doesn't like me. I mean, he really doesn't like me. I don't want to go on the trip. I just want to call in sick before I get on the boat and barf. What's your advice?
Dear Sugar, I'm a 70-year-old married man, and I suspect my recently widowed neighbor spying on me when I'm in my yard. When I'm out there pulling weeds to drive her batty, I don't wear a shirt.
Dear Sugar, I am a 35-year-old woman. I lost my job, and I've recently entered into an arrangement with a married man. We will rendezvous twice a week, and he will pay me $1,000 a month. Now, I have many thoughts and questions, including, is this taxable income?
Dear Sugar, my question is about love. I'm at the age where most of my friends are married. The closest I've ever been to the altar is when I was the best man. I've had 3 relationships. 1 casual, 1 serious, and 1 current. There was no issue with the casual one. I was upfront about not wanting to settle down. And then the second one started out casual until I had to call it off when she got serious. So I lost both a lover and a friend. For about 4 months now, I've been dating another woman, and she seems to be falling in love with me. And I avoid that word love. I don't want to say that word out loud because it is filled with promises that are fragile and easily broken. I guess my question is, when do I have to take the big step and say I love you? And what is this love thing about anyway? Signed, Confused.
Dear Confused. Oh, I agree. That word love is highly loaded. That's good advice. I agree with you. Dear Confused. You certainly must be confused if you're confused about... That's good writing. I'll just repeat your word back to you. Please don't let the timetable by which others live their lives... Dear Confused, the last word my mother ever said to me was love. She was 45 and so sick and weak, she couldn't muster the I or the you, but it didn't matter, because that puny word has the power to stand on its own. I was 22 and I wasn't with my mother when she died. No one was. She died alone in a hospital room. And for years, I felt like my insides were frozen solid because of that. I ran it over and over in my mind, the choices I made that kept me from being by my mother's side in her last hours. But thinking about it didn't do a thing. But thinking about it was just a long dive into a bucket of shit that didn't have a bottom. I would never be with my mother when she died. And my mother would never be alive again. The last thing that happened between us would always be the last thing. There would be the way I got my coat and said, "I love you." And there would be the way that she was silent until I was almost at the door, and then she called out, "Love." And there would be the way that she was still lying in that bed when I got back the next morning, but dead. My mother's last word clanks inside of me like someone is striking an iron bell at dinner time.
Love, 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 love.
Now I bet you're thinking, this has nothing to do with your question. But your question and my answer are both about love. And love is the feeling we have for people we care about and hold in high regard. It can be light as the hug we give a friend, or heavy as the sacrifices we make for our children. It can be fleeting, everlasting, conditional, unconditional, stoked by sex, sullied by abuse, nourished by humor. The point is, you get to describe it. You get to define this, "Oh, I didn't really mean to fall in love, but I sort of did love," that you appear to have for this woman. But you've convinced yourself that by withholding this one small word from her, you can keep yourself from getting hurt. But you asked me, when do you have to take the big step and tell your girlfriend that you love her? And my answer is, when you think you love her. Be brave. Brave enough to break your own heart. Just tackle the motherfucking shit out of love. Look, we're all gonna die. So hit the iron bell like it's dinner time. Signed, Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Something is different. Who the hell are you?
Hi, I'm the new Sugar.
I knew it. Who are you?
What's your real name?
Let's keep it at Sugar.
Do you write other things?
Yep.
Are you a published author? As in an author of a real book or a blog?
I've published a few things, including a novel.
So do you write the letters for this column?
Nope.
Wait, the letters are real?
Yeah.
All of them?
Yep.
Do you have an office? Is this your job?
No. I write from home in the evenings when I'm supposed to be working on my book.
Well, have you ever written an advice column before?
Nope.
Are any questions off limits?
Nope.
Do you like it up the ass?
No.
Can we really ask you anything?
Yep.
What's your name?
Sugar.
Dear Sugar, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm asking you this question as it applies to everything, every day. Beth, WTF?
Dear Sugar, I got pregnant, and my boyfriend and me, we were excited to become parents. When I was 6.5 months pregnant, I miscarried. Since then, not a day goes by where I don't think about who that child would have been. A girl. She had a name. Every day I wake up and I think, my daughter would be 6.5 months old, or my daughter would have maybe started crawling today. Some days all I can think is the word daughter, daughter, over and over and over again. I'm not sad or pissed off, I'm just numb. And I can't get past it. Most of the people in my life expect me to have moved on by now. One of them said to me recently, it's only a miscarriage. So I feel guilty about being so stuck while also mourning a child who never was. And then there's the reason I lost the baby. My doctor said it was because I'm overweight. Part of me thinks that doctor was an asshole for saying that, but I do blame myself. Because I will go days at a time without eating, and then I'll eat everything in sight and then throw it all up. I will go to the gym and walk on the treadmill for hours until I can't lift my legs. The rational part of me knows that if I do nothing to stop this, I could do serious harm to myself. I know this, and yet I just don't care. I want to know how to care again. Signed, Stuck.
Dear Stuck. Some people, they think they're being honest with you. Others are just scared of the intensity of your loss. But none of them will be helpful to you because they live on planet Earth. And you live on planet my baby died. Many women have spent their days silently chanting, daughter, daughter, or son, son, to themselves. And you need to find these women because they are your tribe. And the healing power of even the most microscopic exchange with someone who understands in an instant precisely what you are talking about because she experienced that thing too, that cannot be overestimated. Several years ago, I was working with at-risk middle school girls. They were mostly poor, white, 7th, 8th grade. My job title was youth advocate. My mission was to help the girls succeed. Succeeding meant not getting pregnant or thrown in jail before they had a chance to graduate from high school. It meant eventually holding down a job. So it was a small thing, and yet it was enormous. Like trying to push an 18-wheeler with your pinky finger. I was so scared of them at first. They were 13. I was 28. They hated everything. Everything was boring, stupid, and either
Totally cool.
or
Totally gay.
Then I had to tell them why not to use the word gay to mean stupid. And they thought I was a
Total fag.
For thinking by gay they meant gay. Then I had to tell them why not to use the word fag. Then I passed out the journals I purchased for them.
Do we get to keep these?
Oh yeah, open them. So I had the girls write down 3 true things about themselves and 1 lie. And then we went around guessing which one was the lie. By the time we were halfway around the room, they loved me intensely.
She's okay.
Not me, but the way I held them, with unconditional, positive regard. We went to places they'd never been, to the rock climbing gym and the ballet. And I thought, if they witness the grace of live art, then they won't steal someone's wallet and end up in jail. And as they pull themselves up on a fake boulder, they will learn to value their bodies and they won't get knocked up. Their fathers were in prison or unknown to them or fucking them. Their mothers strung out on drugs or out on the streets. These girls, they told me ghastly, merciless stories of sorrow and betrayal. There was one girl. She wore this huge hooded sweatshirt down past her knees and she put the hood up over her head. And then she had a dense curtain of hair that hung right in front of her face. She looked like she had 2 backs of a head and no front. And she told me that she spent most nights
In a falling down wooded shed near the alley behind the apartment building.
where she lived. And she did this because
I couldn't take staying inside.
where her mother ranted and raved, alcoholic, mentally ill. Another girl told me that when her mother's boyfriend got angry, he
Haul me outside and turn on the hose, and then he'd hold my face under the ice cold morning water until I almost drowned, and then he locked me outside for 2 hours.
I told the girls, these things are unacceptable, illegal. I told them, I will call someone and this will stop. So I called the police and I called Child Protective Services, and no one did anything. So I told the girls something different. This will not stop. This will go on. So you are going to have to find a place within yourself to not only escape the shit, but to transcend it. And if you can't do that, then your whole life will be shit. Forever and ever and ever. You have to do more than hold on. You have to reach. And the same is true for you, Stuck. And for anyone who's ever had anything terrible happen to them. The way you get unstuck is you reach. Therapy and talking to friends and support groups will help. And don't hold it inside. Talk it out, get it out, cry it out. But know this. No one else can make this right for you. You have to reach for your desire to heal. And true healing, it is a fierce place. It is a giant place full of monstrous beauty and glimmering light, and you have to work really hard to get there. Years after I left that job, I was having lunch at a Taco Bell, and I was just gathering my stuff to leave when a young woman in a Taco Bell uniform approached me and said my name. It was the faceless girl from the falling down shed. And her hair was up in a ponytail now. She was all grown up.
Hey,
Is it you?
I made it. Didn't I?
You did. You absolutely did. Signed, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, I am middle-aged, married, and crushing on a friend. It's full-blown, just like high school. Sweaty palms, distracted, giddy, the whole shebang. If we'd met at a different time, we would totally be together. We can talk for hours. We're never bored. We can't stop smiling at each other. We really like each other. So far, it's gone no further than flirting. I mean, we haven't kissed, we haven't crossed a physical boundary, but we really like each other. My question isn't what should I do? I mean, I'm pretty clear. I should behave. I mean, I want to behave. I really want to, but what should I do? Signed, Crushed.
Dear Crushed. That's basically every middle-aged married person ever. X is married to Y, but wants to fuck Z. Because Z is new and never gonna bitch at you for forgetting to take out the trash. I mean, Z doesn't care if you're late. Z doesn't wear a watch. Z is like a motorcycle with nobody on it. Dazzling. Going nowhere. Signed, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, the thought of staying in my marriage makes me feel panicky and claustrophobic. My wife and I have some things in common, but I don't feel like those are enough anymore. I find myself fantasizing about dating other people, and I'm afraid that if I do nothing, I'm just going to get more bored with time, but I'm also afraid that I'm not going to do any better, and I should just be grateful for what I have.
Dear Sugar, I want to leave my marriage, but I don't want to embarrass her. I'm terrified of hurting her. I mean, she has been so good to me. She is like my best friend, and I think that I love her, but I'm not in love with her.
Dear Sugar, I feel trapped, like I can't be the real me. I don't blame him for my discontent, but I never wanted to get married, and now I can't see a way to end this charade. I want out, but how?
Signed, afraid to leave.
Signed, I can't do this.
Signed, how can I hurt him?
Dear all of us who want to please, there was nothing wrong with my first husband. I mean, he wasn't perfect. He was pretty close. I met him a month after I turned 19, and then I married him on this rash romantic impulse a month before I turned 20. But there was this awful thing, almost from the very beginning. This small, clear voice that would not, no matter what I did, would not stop saying, go. Go, even though you love him. Go, even though he's kind and faithful and dear to you. Go even though he's your best friend and you're his. Go even though your friends will be confused, disappointed, pissed off. Probably all three. Go even though you once said you'd stay. Go even though you're afraid of being alone. Go even though you have nowhere to go. Go because you want to. And wanting to leave is enough. Now, I want you to take that last sentence and write it on your palm. And then I want you to read it over and over until your tears have washed it away. When it came to my first marriage, I tried to be good. Then I tried to be bad. I was sad and scared and self-sacrificing and ultimately self-destructive. I ended up cheating on my first husband because I didn't have the guts to tell him I wanted out. I loved him too much to make a clean break of it, so I botched the job and made it dirty instead. Divorcing him was the most excruciating decision I have ever made. But my life wasn't the only one that was made better. He deserved to have the lovable woman who did not have the word go whispering like some deranged ghost in her ear. We all know when we need to, want to, must go. So my only question for you is, will you do it now or will you do it later? Signed, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, we still don't know who the hell you are, and frankly, who the hell do you think you are? This week, you're telling people to leave their marriages. Last week, it was the opposite. You said, don't have an affair. You said, don't be X-fucking Z or you'll turn into a motorcycle. What are you trying to make us do? Signed, not buying it. Get the fuck out of my chair.
Dear not buying it. I'm not trying to make anyone do anything. I'm just offering advice based on my personal experiences.
Did you just make this all about you?
Are you a therapist?
No.
Are you in therapy?
No.
Are you even qualified for this gig? Dear Sugar, your advice is all over the place. How can you seriously suggest in one column that we stick to convention and the very next one say we gotta be bold? Make up your mind! Whatever. Why am I trying to figure out who you are? Do you even know who you are? Make a choice. Pick a lane. Signed. Still not buying it.
Dear, still not buying it. Years ago, I was in a cafe with a man who is now my husband. We'd only been lovers for about a month, but oh, we were already in deep, thick in the thrall of the you tell me everything and I'll tell you everything because I love you so madly stage. So on this particular day, I was telling him about my divorce and then about my months of heroin use, which led to the tale of getting pregnant by a heroin addict, and how I'd been so angry about having an abortion that I had intentionally sliced a line in my arm with a knife. And then he stopped me and he said,
Don't get me wrong. I want to hear all about your life. But I want you to know you don't have to tell me these things to get me to love you. You don't have to be broken for me.
I remember that moment precisely. Wasn't a good feeling. I had never realized that I thought in order to get a man to love me, I had to appear broken for him. But as soon as he said it, I recognized it. And here was a man, a good, kind, compassionate man, finally calling me out.
You don't have to be broken for me.
I didn't have to be broken for him, even though parts of me were. I realized I could be every part of myself. I could be vulnerable and strong. I could be fearful and fearless. I could be everything I was and wanted to be. And that things could be valid and yet contradictions of each other. It was the unification of the ancient and future parts of me. And in that moment, I was open. And I was bare. Now, I will be open with you. And I will be bare. I will show you my weaknesses and my strengths. And I will do my best to give you my best, tough, sweet, and occasionally contradictory advice. I mean, I don't know if my unorthodox approach is wrong or right. And I realize advice columnists are supposed to position themselves as the ones who know, but I am not that person. I am the one who doesn't know, but who will try really, really hard to see what I can find. This is who I am. So tell me, who are you? Sign, yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar, I was in an accident, injured my spine, and now I'm secretly addicted to pain meds.
Dear Sugar, I am afraid of my violent older brother who has terrorized me since we were kids.
Dear Sugar, icky thoughts turn me on. I fantasize about men taking me aggressively and me being submissive in bed.
Dear Sugar, my wife drinks while I'm at work, and when I get home, she thinks that I can't tell.
Dear Sugar, my daughter has a tumor and she's having brain surgery in the morning, and I find myself doubting God's existence.
Dear Sugar, my birth mother doesn't want to meet me.
Dear Sugar, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm asking you this question and it applies to everything every day. Best. WTF.
Dear Sugar, I'm 34 years old and I'm transgender. I was born a female, but knew I was meant to be a male ever since I can remember. I had the usual painful childhood and adolescence in a smallish town because I was different, picked on by other kids, misunderstood by my family. 7 years ago, I told my mom and dad that I intended to have a gender-affirming surgery. They were furious. They said the worst things you can imagine saying to another human being, especially if that human being is your child. In response, I cut off all ties with them, moved away, and started a new life as a man. I have friends and romance in my life. I love my job, and I am happy with who I have become and the life that I have made. Years after no contact, I got an email from my parents that blew my mind. They apologized. They said that they were sorry, they never understood, and now they do. They love me and they miss me. Sugar, they want me back. And I cried like crazy, and that surprised me. I did not love my parents anymore. I had made it without them. I had created an island safe and far away from my past, and I made it because I'm tough. Do I forgive them and get back in touch, or do I ignore their email and stay safe on my island? What do I do? Signed, Orphan.
Dear orphan, forgive your parents. I mean, not for them, for you. You've remade yourself, and you and your mom and dad, you can remake this too. This new era in which you and them are finally capable of finding the love you deserve. What they did to you 7 years ago was terrible. They now know that. I mean, here's the difference between your parents and so many others who have tried to stay in their children's lives after a time of abuse and trauma. They're sorry. They're more sorry than most. Your parents have grown and changed and come to understand things that confounded them before, refusing to accept them for the people they are. Well, it's no different than them refusing to accept you for the person you are. And that is not tough. That's weak. You've had to ask yourself impossible questions and endure humiliations and remake yourself in ways that most people cannot even imagine. But you know what? So have your parents. When you needed them, they were drowning in an ocean of their own fear. They're not drowning anymore. They swam to shore. They have finally arrived on your island. Welcome them. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, 4 years ago I was raped. Anger and panic became a deep part of my life and almost pulled me under. It took a long time, but I pulled myself out of it and onward, and I put it behind me, and I really am over it. Well, I've met this great guy. We've been together about 1.5 years, and we have a healthy and a positive relationship. Do I tell him about my sexual assault? Do I need to? We've been through some stuff, but I don't think he can handle hearing this. I'm worried that it will freak him out and affect our relationship. I need your advice. Signed, Whitell.
Dear Whitell, I reached out to a friend of mine, talented painter, to ask how she recovered from her sexual assault, how she resumed having healthy sexual relationships with men, and how she continued to go on and be a talented painter and live a full life. She told me we get to choose who we allow to influence us. She said, I could allow myself to be influenced by a man who screwed me against my will, or I could allow myself to be influenced by Van Gogh. I chose Van Gogh. You chose Van Gogh too, and I salute you for coming through your experience to the other side of it. But you have a secret within you. Keeping your sexual assault from your boyfriend, that doesn't allow him to see what a warrior you are. We need to let the people who love us see what made us. Tell your boyfriend about your sexual assault, how it happened, how you suffered, how you made your way through it, and how you feel about it now. Tell him, because otherwise it creates the burden of a secret that you are too wonderful to keep. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, one of the general mysteries in life is that I don't know how something will turn out until I live through it. Can you give me an example of a time you thought one thing and then it became another? Signed, Curious.
Dear Curious, summer I turned 18. I was driving down a country road with my mother, and we stopped at the yard sale. And there was nothing much of interest at the yard sale, but a moment before I was about to suggest we leave, something caught my eye. It was a red velvet dress with a white skirt, fit for a toddler. I mean, I was pretty sure at this moment in my life, I was never going to be a mother myself. Children were fine, but ultimately annoying. And I wanted more out of life. And yet, ridiculously, inexplicably, I wanted that red dress. Something about it just called powerfully to me. And my mother picked it up.
Would you like this red dress for Sunday?
I'm not even gonna have kids.
Well, you could buy it and then put it in a box, and then you'll have it no matter what you decide.
I don't have $1.
Oh, I do.
3 years later, I'd be standing in a field, not far from that yard sale, holding the ashes of my mother's body in my palms. My mother was gone. The red dress was still with me, packed in a cedar box that had belonged to her. And I dragged it with me all the way along the scorching trail of my 20s and into my 30s, when I had 2 children, a son and then a daughter. The red dress was a secret, only known to me, buried among my mother's best things. And when I unearthed it and held it again, it was like being slapped and kissed at the same time. Like someone had turned the volume way up and also way down. The 2 things that were true about its existence had an opposite effect, and yet they were the same single fact. My mother bought a dress for the granddaughter she'd never know. My mother bought a dress for the granddaughter she'd never know. How beautiful. How ugly. How little. How big. How painful. How sweet. It's seldom that we can draw a direct line between this and that. I mean, my desire to buy the dress was made meaningful only by my mother's death and my daughter's birth. The dress was the material evidence of my loss, but also of the way my mother's love had carried me forth beyond her life extending years into my own in ways I never could have imagined when that red dress first caught my eye. And seeing my daughter on the second Christmas of her life, wearing the dress that the grandmother she'd never meet bought for her, that returned something to me that I thought had been lost forever. We cannot possibly know what will manifest in our lives. When we live and have experiences and leave people we love and get left by them, and people we thought would be in our lives forever aren't. And people we didn't know would come into our lives do. And it's our work here to keep faith with that, to put it in a box and wait, to trust that someday we'll know what it means, so that when the ordinary miraculous is revealed to us, we will be there, standing before the baby girl in the pretty dress, grateful for the smallest things. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar. Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar, if it's true that drug addicts stop maturing when they start using, the same can be said about weddings.
Dear Sugar, I'm worried that I'll die alone.
Dear Sugar, when it comes to holding down a job, I'm the worst.
Dear Sugar, I think I'm getting feelings for my teacher.
Dear Sugar, are you there?
Dear Sugar, where are you?
Dear Sugar, why aren't you answering me?
Dear Sugar, my roommate is selfish. Are you ever gonna answer me?
Dear Sugar, kinda crazy, but my girlfriend gets seriously turned on by Santa Claus? Old dude, big belly, white beard, his power to know whether you're naughty or nice. The whole thing just gets her going. It's our first Christmas together, and she told me about the fantasy when Santa started popping up all over the place. She gets especially turned on when she sees an actual Santa. She starts thinking about sitting on his lap, what can happen next. You get the picture. So here's my question. My sister has 2 young sons, and a few years ago she bought a Santa suit. And I would go over to her place, put it on, and give my nephews a thrill on Christmas Eve. Anyway, I was thinking, what if I held on to the suit for a bit? Give my girlfriend a thrill too? Creepy? Good idea? Bad idea? What are your thoughts? Signed, Sexy Santa?
Dear Sexy Santa, your giving spirit is truly what the holiday season is all about. I say, stuff that woman's stocking the way only Santa knows how. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, I've been dating this girl for a while, until I realized she was self-absorbed, so I dumped her. And then she became another one of my crazy exes, and then she had a fight with her best friend, and they're no longer friends. So the ex-best friend of my ex calls me up and wants to hang out. I ended up banging her. And then a couple days later, she tells me she's engaged, and she wears this weird short-haired wig while she is breaking up with me. And the thing is that I connected better with her in the 3 days that we hung out than I ever did with my ex in months. So please help me figure out what I should do and which woman I should be with. I mean, I'm not a smart man, but I do know what love is. Signed, Gump.
Dear Gump, I leave politics out of this column, but just this once. Let's recall when former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld said, quite wisely, something like, there are known knowns. Now these are the things you know. And then there are known unknowns. These are the things that you know you do not know. And then there are unknown unknowns. These are things that you don't know. You don't know. Now, when it comes to your particular triangular quagmire, let's start with the known knowns. These are the things you know. A.
I didn't want to fuck my girlfriend anymore, so I dumped her.
B.
I fucked my ex-girlfriend's ex-best friend for 3 days. Things were good.
And C.
She wore a wig while she was telling me she didn't want to fuck me anymore.
Which brings us to the known unknowns. Now these are the things that you know you don't know. A.
Why are so many of my exes crazy?
B.
Is my ex-girlfriend's ex-best friend really engaged to be married? Or is she just trying to shake me?
And C.
Why the wig?
Which brings us to the unknown unknowns. Now these are the things that you don't know you don't know. A. You don't have a future with either of these women. B. Neither of them's even thinking about you. And C. And yet, you are loved. You wrote to me with your scared, searching, knuckle-headed heart on full display. Takes a lot to be that brave, and you are. So, I love you. And the only advice I have for you is, go find another girlfriend. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, my sister's been in hospice care for 6 months.
Dear Sugar, he only hired me because he's attracted to me.
Dear Sugar, my 2 grown sons, ages 35 and 31, have returned to the nest, my home. They did not ask.
Dear Sugar, I was born with a rare blood disorder that has left me with physical deformities.
Dear Sugar, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm asking you this question as it applies to everything, every day. Best. WTF.
Dear WTF, my father's father made me jack him off when I was 3 and 4 and 5. I wasn't any good at it. My hands were too small. I couldn't get the rhythm right. I didn't know what I was doing. I only knew I didn't want to do it. I knew it made me feel miserable and anxious in a way so sickeningly particular. I can feel that particular sickness rising in my throat right now. I hated having to rub my grandfather's cock, but I had to do it. My grandfather babysat my sister and I a couple times a week, and more often than not, when I was trapped in his house, he would pull his already getting hard penis out of his pants and say, "Come here." And that was that. We moved far away from him when I was almost 6. And then my parents split up and my father left my life, and I never saw my grandfather again. He died when he was 66 of black lung disease. I was 15, and when I heard that he died, I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy either. He was nothing to me. And yet, he was always there. The force of him, of what he'd made me do, moving through me like a dark river. For years, I didn't say a word about it to anyone, and I just hoped that silence would make it disappear. But it didn't. So I railed against it, trying to find the answer to what the fuck was up with my grandfather doing that to me. But I could never shake it. That particular fuck would not be shook. And asking, "What the fuck?" just brought it around again. And around it went. My grandfather's cock in my hands. So vivid, so palpable, so very much a part of me. And it came to me during sex and not during sex. And it came to me in flashes, and it came to me in dreams. And it came to me one day when I found a baby bird that had fallen from its nest. Now, I'd always heard that you're not supposed to pick up baby birds, because if you do, the mother bird won't come back and get it. It doesn't matter if that's true or not, because I knew there was only one humane thing to do. I put that baby bird in a paper bag, and I smothered it with my hands. Now, nothing that has died in my life has ever died easily. This bird was no exception. I could feel it beneath the paper bag, pulsing against my hand and rearing up, simultaneously flaccid and ferocious beneath that translucent sheen of skin. Precisely as my grandfather's cock had been. And there it was! There it was again! I mean, the ghost of that old man's cock would forever be in my hands. But I knew what I was doing this time. I knew I had to press harder than I could bear. Pressing harder was murder. But it had to die. Pressing harder was mercy. And that's what the fuck it was. The fuck was mine. That question does not apply to everything every day. If it does, you are wasting your life. If it does, you are a lazy coward. You're not a lazy coward. Ask better questions. The fuck is your life? Answer it. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, my father is narcissistic, controlling, vain, volatile, and charming. If I wasn't cheerful enough, he'd lock me in my room for days, and if I made a joke, he'd yell and curse at me. My father would denounce me as his child over the slightest disagreements, and then when he decided that everything was okay again, I had to accept his change of heart. No apology offered, unless it was mine. I could never be perfect enough. I mean, I tried so hard to make him proud, to make him care. I mean, he is my dad after all. And still now, as adult, it is no better. He is so consumed with his image that when he found out that my therapist, a understanding, kind, sympathetic counselor, was a woman that he knew, he insisted that I stop seeing her. But 3 months ago, he went too far. He betrayed my mother, and I was the fucking bitch for finding out about his infidelity. I mean, I know that people say that family is important and that I should forgive the man who gave me life and keep him in my life. I mean, he is the only father I have, but is it worth the pain? Signed, when it's too much. Too much.
Dear Too Much, no. Maintaining a relationship with your abusive father, it's not worth it. The standard you should apply when deciding whether or not to have an active relationship with him is the same one you should apply with all relationships in your life. You will not be mistreated, disrespected, or manipulated. And your father does not currently meet this standard. My mother left my father because he was violent and abusive. So I haven't had parents as an adult, but I've carried them with me every day. They've been like 2 empty bowls that I've had to repeatedly fill on my own. I think your father will have the same effect on you. And even if you cut ties with him, he's gonna be like that, an empty bowl that you'll have to fill on your own, over and over. After my mother died, I wrote a letter to my father, letting him know that in order for me to have a relationship with him, he first had to explain why he'd done the things he'd done. He didn't write back. And 17 years passed, and then one day, there it was, my father's name on the screen of my telephone.
Hello.
Hello?
Do you watch Rachel Ray?
Rachel Ray?
Rachel Ray, the cookbook author. She has a talk show.
Yeah, no, Thus began the most flabbergasting conversation of my life. My father spoke to me as if we spoke every week. As if nothing that had happened between us had happened. As if my entire childhood just did not exist. The topics were recipes, poodles, cataracts, and sunscreen. I hung up 15 minutes later, utterly bewildered. He wasn't ill or delusional. He was my father, speaking to me as if I were his daughter, as if he had a right. But he didn't. For all those years without him in my life, I always thought of my dad on my birthday. I always thought that on the day I was born, he must have held me in his hands and thought, oh, his baby was a miracle. He must have believed he could be a better person than he'd been before. A few days after I got the phone call, I got a chatty note over email. And when I replied, I said the same thing that I had said in the letter I sent him 17 years before, that I would consider having a relationship with him only after we had discussed our shared past. He wrote back and asked what it was I wanted to know. I wrote the most loving, painful, forgiving letter of my life. And then I hit send. My father's reply came so quickly, it seemed impossible he'd read the whole thing. He wrote in enraged words that I was never to contact him again, and that he was glad to finally be rid of me. I didn't cry. I just laced up my shoes and walked out my front door and through my neighborhood to a park. And then I went up a hill, and I didn't stop until I got all the way to the top. And I sat down on this bench that overlooks the city. And I had that feeling you get, and there's no word for this feeling, when you're simultaneously happy and sad and angry and grateful and accepting and appalled and every other possible emotion all smashed together and amplified. Why is there no word for this feeling? I sat for so long on that bench, just looking at the sky and the land and the trees and thinking, my father is finally rid of me. Perhaps healing is the word, and we just don't want to believe that. We want the word healing to be more pure and perfect, like a baby on its birthday. And when we're holding it in our hands, we'll be better people than we were before. Like we have to be. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, do you ever read the comments after you've posted a response to a letter?
I'm a writer posting things online. I try to avoid the comments. Yes, I read all the comments.
I had this really hot dream about you, even though I don't know what you look like. Whether your hair is curly or straight, or whether you're curvy or skinny, all that I know is that you were a woman and we were getting down.
Okay.
Come on, Sugar, it's making me crazy. What would a picture of you look like?
A woman standing naked in the light of day. Her hands are obscuring her face. You can see everything but the one thing.
Why? Why can't we see that one thing? Why can't we see your face and know who you are?
You know who I am. I reveal myself to you in every column.
What's a piece of advice you'd give to someone in their 20s?
Try to be about 10 times more generous than you believe yourself capable of being.
Well, why?
Because in your 20s, you're becoming who you're going to be. You might as well not become an asshole.
What's something weird that's happened to you?
Something weird. Okay, so a few years ago, I was hiking up a mountain. There was still some snow in place, New Mexico. And I hadn't seen another soul for hours. And then I came across two people, a man and a woman, and they had just met each other. So we're three strangers who met on a mountain. And we get to talking, we come to find out we all have the same birthday. And not only that, but we were all born in 3 consecutive years. And then as we're standing there, 3 feathers blow up in the snow. And we picked them up. That was weird.
Can you please tell us some of the dumb stuff you've done?
Heroin, meth, the withdrawal method, blowjob by the lake, an idiot punk at a Beastie Boys concert.
What's a piece of advice that's taken you a long time to learn?
If forgiveness is written on one side of a coin, then on the opposite side of that coin is written the word no. No is golden. It is the good kind of power. It's how emotionally evolved people live their lives. No is how you set boundaries. No means you are choosing what to share.
Will you tell us your name?
No.
Will you please tell us your name?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't matter to me who you are. I just wonder where you got that big heart of yours.
From my mother.
Oh.
And my father. From a crack in the sidewalk where a flower grew. From that blowjob by the lake. From the lake. From saying yes to strange offers. And from all of you.
Dear Sugar, for years I stole compulsively. I blame myself even though I was on a cocktail of psychotropic drugs for depression, anxiety, and insomnia. I stole a pair of jeans from a friend, flower pots from a neighbor, money from a girlfriend's wallet. I blame myself, even though I grew up with my abusive mother screaming at me that I was nothing but a liar, a cheat, and a thief. I was trying to fulfill her prophecy while also maybe making people hate and reject me for being a liar, a cheat, and a thief. I hate myself. I loathe myself for what I've done. I wonder if I should confess to the people who will surely hate and reject me. Sugar, can I forgive myself without admitting to people how I wronged them? Please help. Signed, Thief.
Dear Thief, on a warm spring day, several years ago, I found I was down to my last 20 cents. So I put almost everything I owned out on the lawn. My thrift store dresses, my knickknacks, my dishes. And customers came and went throughout the day, but my primary companions was a group of 11-year-old boys. And they flitted around asking, how much is this? How much is that? They didn't have any money to purchase. Towards the end of the day, the boys told me that one of them had stolen something from me. It was an empty, retro leather camera case I'd once used as a purse. It was a small item, barely worth bothering about. It probably would have only brought in a couple of bucks. But I asked the accused boy if he'd taken it.
No.
The next day, he came back wearing a big gray sweatshirt, and when he thought I wasn't looking, he pulled the camera case out from under his shirt, put it back where it had been the day before.
Your thing's back.
Oh, good! Why'd you steal it?
I didn't.
It was a warm day, and so some of the boys sat on the porch steps with me, telling me about their lives. The boy who'd stolen the camera case showed me his bicep. And then he told me in a voice more belligerent than the others that the gold chains around his neck were real. Why'd you steal my camera case?
I didn't. I just took it with me to my house while I went to get some money.
The day went on, and pretty soon it was just the two of us. He told me about the mother he rarely saw, and about his much older siblings, about the hot car he was going to buy the moment he turned 16. Why'd you steal my camera case?
Because I was lonely.
There have only been a few times in my life when someone has been that self-aware and nakedly honest as that boy was in that moment. I mean, when he said what he said, I almost fell up the steps. Perhaps because when he told me something about himself, he also told me something about myself. I used to steal things. Compacted blue eyeshadow from my cousin, and a pretty sweater from a friend. A little figurine of a white dog with its head like askew. I didn't know why I stole things. I still can't properly say, but because I was lonely seems about the rightest thing I ever heard. I think you were lonely too. And lonely's not a crime. I don't think the road to healing is going backwards up the trail. And the people you stole from don't need you to fess up. But you're so very invested in your self-loathing. If you perpetually condemn yourself for being a liar and a thief, does that make you good? I don't like the thief part of my narrative either. I really struggled with whether to talk about it here. It is the first time I've written about it, ever. And I've written about all kinds of other bad things I've done, promiscuous sex and drugs. This feels worse. But it's who I am. It's who you are. Can we forgive ourselves? Years after I stopped stealing things, I was sitting alone by a river, and I found myself thinking about all the things that I had taken. And before I realized what I was doing, I started picking a blade of grass for each one and dropping it in the water. I am forgiven, I thought, as I dropped in the blade of grass that stood in for the compacted blue eyeshadow. I am forgiven I thought, for the pretty sweater. I am forgiven for the little dog figurine, and so on, until I just let all the bad things I'd done go right on down the river. And I had said, I am forgiven so many times. Felt like I actually was. Now, that is not to say I never grappled with it again. You have to say, I am forgiven, over and over, until it becomes the story you believe about yourself. Every last one of us has the capacity to do this, you included. I hope you will. I don't know whatever came of that lonely boy at my yard sale. I hope he was able to make right whatever was wrong within him. But when I closed down the sale, the camera case he had stolen was still there. So I held it out to him. You want that?
Yes, please.
Yours. Sugar.
Dear Sugar, 1. I've spent several weeks trying to compose a letter, and even still, I can't do it right. So to get it out, I'm going to make a list instead of write a letter. 2. I don't have a definite question for you. I'm a sad, angry man whose son has died. I want him back, and that's all I ask for. And that's not a question. 3. Nearly 4 years ago, a drunk driver ran a red light and hit my son at full speed. The dear boy that I love more than life itself was dead before the paramedics even arrived. He was 22, my only child. 4. I'm a father while not being a father. Most days it feels like my grief might actually kill me. Perhaps it already has. I'm a living dead dad. 5. Your column has helped me to go on. I have faith in my version of God, and I pray every day. And the way that I feel when I'm in my deepest prayer is the way that I feel when I read your words. 6. I see a psychologist regularly. I'm not clinically depressed or on any medication. 7. Suicide has occurred to me, but I can't do it because it would be a betrayal of my values and the values I instilled in my son. 8. I have friends and family who are supportive, and even my ex-wife and I are close friends now that our son is dead. 9. I have a good job in my health. 10. I'm going on with things in a way that makes it appear as though I'm adjusting to life without my son, but in all honesty, I'm living in a private hell. 11. Some days the pain is so great that I just lie in my bed and wail. 12. I can't stop thinking about my son. 13. I can't stop thinking about what he would be doing if he was alive, or the things that we used to do when he was young. 14. I hate the man that killed my son. For his crime, he was given 18 months and then released. He sent me a letter of apology. I barely scanned it. I just tore it in pieces and threw it in the trash. 15. I fear that you will choose not to answer my letter because you haven't lost a child. 16. I fear that if you do choose to answer my letter, people will criticize you and say that you don't have a right to speak on this because you haven't lost a child. 17. I pray you never lose a child. 18. I will understand if you choose not to answer my letter. Most people, as kind as they are, they don't know what to say to me. Why should you be any different? 19. I'm writing to you because the way you've written about your grief over your mother passing so young has been meaningful to me. 20. But what can you say to me? 21. How do I go on? 22. How do I become human again? Signed, Living Dead Dad.
Dear
Living dead dad.
1, I don't know how you go on living without your son. I only know that you do. And you have, and you will. 2, your shattering letter is proof of that. 3, you do not need me to teach you how to be human. I mean, you are there in all your humanity, shining unimpeachably in front of everyone reading these words right now. 4, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for your loss. 5, you could stitch a quilt with the number of times that has been and will be said to you. And you could make a river of consolation words, but it won't bring your son back. And it won't stop that man from getting into his car and careening through that red light at the precise moment that your son was in his path. 6, you'll never stop that man from getting into that car. 7, but when you peel back the rage, and you peel back the thoughts of suicide, and you peel back the man in the car, at the center of that is your pure father love for your son. And that is stronger than anything. 8, no one can touch that love or alter it or take it from you, because your love for your son belongs only to you. 9, small things have saved me. How much I love my mother, even after all these years. How powerfully I carry her within me. I mean, my grief is tremendous, but my love is bigger, and so is yours. You're not grieving your son because his death was untimely and unfair. You're grieving him because you loved him truly. And the beauty in that is greater than the bitterness of his death. 10, I keep imagining you lying in your bed and wailing. And I keep thinking that, hard as it is, it's time for you to go silent and lift your head and listen to what is in the wake of the wail. 11, it's your life, the one you must make in this obliterated place that is now your world, where everything that you were is simultaneously erased and omnipresent, where you are forevermore a living dead dad. 12, the literal translation of the word obliterate is to be against the letters. It was impossible for you to write me a letter, so you wrote me a list instead. 13, because the obliterated place is equal parts destruction and creation. The obliterated place is pitch black and it is bright light. It is parched earth and it is water. It is mud and it is manna. And the work of deep grief is making a home there. 14, more will be revealed to you, because your son has not yet taught you everything he has to teach you. He taught you how to love like you have never loved before. And he taught you how to suffer like you have never suffered before. Perhaps the next thing he has to teach you is acceptance. And then after that, forgiveness. 15, forgiveness bellows from the bottom of the canoe. And there are stories there that you'll learn. if you're strong enough to travel there. One of them might cure you. 16. We say, I can't go on, instead of, God, I hope I don't have to. But you are strong enough to withstand this sorrow. We all are. 17. And you go on by doing the best you can. You go on by being generous. And you go on by helping others who can't go on. You go on by allowing the unbearable days to pass, and then allowing pleasure in other days. You go on by finding a channel for your rage, and then another for your love. 18. When my son was 6, he said, people die at all ages. He said it without grief or anguish. And it's been healing for me to accept in a very simple way that my mother's life was 45 years long, and there was nothing beyond that. 19. When you say you experience my writing as sacred, what you're touching is the place within me that is my mother. Sugar is the temple I built in my obliterated place. I would give it all back. But the truth is, my grief has taught me things. It required me to suffer, and it compelled me to reach. 20. Your grief has taught you things too, living dead dad. Your son was your greatest gift in his life, and he is your greatest gift in his death too. Receive it. Let your dead boy be your most profound revelation. 21. Think. My son's life was 22 years long. Breathe in. 22. Think. My son's life was 22 years long. Breathe out. 23. There is no 23. 24. Create something of him and make it beautiful. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar! I heard that you're going to reveal your real name to us. Is it true? Are we finally going to figure out who you are? Signed, Hopeful.
Dear Hopeful, there's this common assumption that by not revealing my name, I'm somehow protecting my privacy, or it's freeing to write anonymously. What's freeing is that you're able to read my responses without the barriers of any preconceived ideas about my age or my ethnicity or my accomplishments. Not knowing my name allows you to have a more pure vision of me. You know, when I took on Sugar, I wrote the only way I know how, with radical sincerity and open arms. What surprised me was how much you all gave back to me. I mean, you gave me love. Love, 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 love. So much love. And your story spilled into mine, and I spilled mine back into you. I mean, I am not Sugar on my own. We created something here together. And we are all Sugar. I know you. And you know me. And I have revealed the most intimate details of my life. So, keeping my name a secret is really no longer important. My name is Cheryl Strayed. Yes. Yep. I am Sugar. And so are all of you. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, I've been wanting to ask you something.
My question is pretty simple.
Something I always wondered about.
What's a piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
Love, you.
Oh. Dear younger me, stop worrying about whether or not you're fat. You're not fat. Okay, you're a little bit fat. Who gives a shit? Feed yourself. The people worthy of your love, they'll love you more for this.
The adults that you think are old and stupidly saddled with kids and cars and houses were every once just as bit as hip and pompous as you.
In the middle of the night, in the middle of your 20s, when a friend crawls naked into bed and straddles you and says, "You should run away from me before I devour you," believe her.
Don't lament so much about your career. You don't have a career, you have a life. Keep the faith, do the work. The useless days will add up to something. The shitty waitressing jobs, the writing in your journal, the long meandering walks, the reading books of poetry and novels and dead people's diaries and wondering about God and sex and whether to shave under your arms or not. These things are your becoming.
When the sweet but fucked up gay couple invites you over to their cool house to do ecstasy, say no.
You cannot convince people to love you. This is an absolute rule. Real love must move freely in both directions. Don't waste your time on anything less.
Most things will be okay eventually, but not everything will be. Sometimes you'll fight with your all and lose. Sometimes you'll hold on real hard, but eventually realize you have no choice but to let go. Acceptance is a small, quiet room.
When you meet a man in the doorway of a Mexican restaurant who later kisses you while telling you that the kiss doesn't mean anything because as much as he likes you, he just isn't interested in a relationship right now, just laugh and kiss him back. Your daughter will have a sense of humor. Your son will have his eyes.
You can't understand everything just yet. Your life will be a great and continuous unfolding. You'll come to know things that can only be known with the wisdom of age and the grace of years. Most of those things will have to do with forgiveness.
On Christmas, at the very beginning of your 20s, when your mother gives you a coat that she saved for months to buy, don't look at her skeptically when she tells you she thought the coat would be perfect for you.
Don't hold it up and say that it's longer than you like your coats to be and too puffy and possibly too warm.
Your mother will be dead by spring. This coat will be the last gift that she gives you.
For the rest of your life, you will regret the small things you didn't say. Say thank you.
In the era when you've gotten yourself ridiculously tangled up with heroin, you'll be riding the bus one hot afternoon, thinking about what a worthless piece of crap you are. And a little girl will get on the bus, holding the strings to 2 purple balloons. And she'll hold one out to you, but you won't take it because you believe you're no longer worthy of such tiny, beautiful things. But you're wrong. You are. Yours, Sugar.